Cybernation Uncensored.
Oh, hello, hello. There, apparently his audio is not coming through. I don't know if y'all can hear me either. Um,
Yeah, ask chat to let you know if they can hear you. Let's see if they can hear me as well. All right, I think we got it fixed. As always, we have to appease the mute gods. All right, yeah, chat. Let us know if you can hear me. You can hear Will, aka Rook. You see there in chat. This is our deep dive series that I do here for Cybernation Uncensored. Started this a really long time ago. Um, okay, cool. Everyone says they can hear both of us now. Good. Yeah, like I said, you have to appease the mute gods at least once before you get started. Um, yeah, and on this deep dive, we also have chat as part of this, as you can see. Hey, thanks so much, Jay Gray, R. Talsorian, for subscribing. Really appreciate that, for following. And a shout out to R. Talsorian Games. Hell yeah, Cyberpunk Red themed stream right here for them. So check them out. Um, yeah, I want to just explain a few things before we get started. I know lately we've been getting a lot of trolling stuff on the YouTube for the whole pronoun situation. I just want to explain that our channel, our brand is for everyone. You shouldn't get hung up on that or trip out on that. So if that really bothers you, if that's such a thing, just don't even bother tuning into the live streams. Find something else. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. But I did want to shout out because some of our other teams were getting affected by that. And I want to let them know that I have your back. Our brand has your back. And that's ridiculous. You shouldn't have to tolerate that, put up with it, or deal with it, or any of that stuff. So just want, now that that's out of the way, let's dive deep into the media deep dive. Now, this series that I do for each role is not about the role ability. It's not about the crunch, not about the tech. This is about, more flavor. This is about the role, basically different ways to play it, the archetypes, the life path options, which, Cyberpunk Red has just amazing life path stuff, especially individually for each role. We're also going to get into recommended stats and skills, all that stuff. So like I said, this isn't about the crunch. I have a separate video for that. Check out the role ability breakdown for the media role ability, credibility. This is all about flavors. So let's get into it. Today, you might notice I have a guest with me, Will, who's known as Looper on my monthly Team Veritas, last Wednesday of every month. What's up, Will? Why don't you introduce yourself, let people know where they can find you online, and maybe tell them about Team Veritas a little bit.
hey, my name's Will Huddleston. I'm yes, Looper on Team Veritas. You can find me. My pronouns are he, him, and you can find me on the Discord on Cybernation Uncensored. I'm Rook on there, 8284, but Rook's fine. And you can find me on Twitter at Billy Huddles, or you can Facebook me if you want. But yeah, Team Veritas had a great first season there. Taking down, we were a media neocorp that we started as Team Veritas with our crew of an executive, a solo, a fixer. Our lawman died in action, and our nomad was called home. And then I, of course, play the media, and we have a new player apparently joining us in our little media corp ensemble cast.
Well, we've cycled in a few. We started off with Wandering DM. We all know Simon, and he had a heroic death for his character, where he got some information for the team, and then we were lucky enough to get our buddy Jansik in there as a new solo. And then our own Nomad, played by Tracy, Miss Magitech, she had to go for some other stream stuff. And so we have a new character replacing her coming up on the last Wednesday of this month. We all know her as Jamie Minch, as part of the Patreon, part of our community, part of our chat and stuff. So yeah, it's been kind of a cycle of some new players there, but it's been a lot of fun. I love the fact it's a neocorp based around media, and I thought that's why it would be perfect to have you for the media deep dive. Um,
Honored.
Oh yeah, yeah. Before we get started, I just want to take a moment to shout out, since I mentioned Patreon, my supporters there, that basically are the fuel on my fire. Kevin Moreno, Joseph Holder, Will right here, who's not just part of the support system, but also part of the content creation part of it now, on this side of the stream and everything, not just with the gameplay, but with this content and great information for the community. Awesome. And your beautiful wife, Naomi Madlass, Jamie Minch, who I mentioned, he's going to be joining on Team Veritas, John Erfurt, Leaded Coffee, Michael Edmonds, aka Kira, Chris Anderson, Dolan Pondsmith, who's a Pondsmith, awesome artist. You can see her channel on the Cybernation Uncensored Discord. We have a very active community there. Make sure you join it. Matt James, who's also GM Reservoir Panda, Roten, aka Renegade 420, who's part of my team Ghost every month. Revolver Gray, Steve Barr, who's part of Sirenscape. Shout out to Sirenscape, an official sponsor here. I'll get their sounds going when we dive in. Zeno, Zach, aka GM Capricious Nature, runs our Fallout gameplay every Friday, and the Cyberpunk Red Nomad team every Saturday. Cyber Smiley, who does the Forlorn Dopes first and third Wednesday of every month with us, with Data Fortress 2020's Wisdom, Legends of Cyberpunk. If you don't know Cyber Smiley and Data Fortress, tune into that, check it out. Raven, Andy Stretton, Copious Salt, Jorge, and Tracy Goodwin. Seriously, all of you are the fuel on my fire. Really appreciate it. You keep me going, creating content, gameplay, all that stuff. You keep the community growing, and without you, it just wouldn't be the same. So seriously, thank you so much. Like I mentioned with Sirenscape, let's get some of those sounds going. Look, some city sounds. Let me know in chat, if sirens and things get a little too much and you can't hear us. I'll tone it down a bit. But I do like to get those city sounds going, put us in the mood like we're in the middle of Night City. Like I said, this isn't about crunch. This is about flavor. Let's start with the life path of the media role. The media role, as you know, it's all kinds of content creation and getting information across. Will, I'll let you start it off. Cyberpunk Red has an amazing life path system. We can start with a description of the media role if you want, or we can get into, just dive right into the life path, and then we'll get into archetypes, recommended stat skills, all that stuff. And chat, at any time you want to contribute ideas, you have a question, just throw it in there and we'll make it part of it. You see it's right there on the stream. But Will, take the mic. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, media it's a really... I feel like it's a slept-on role. It is one of the most powerful, in my opinion, when you really get up there. I mean, they're storytellers. They're spinning the truth out there. They're they're the ones making sure people know how what's going on under their noses and how they're getting taken advantage of and fighting typically for truth. But you could really expand on that with some of these life paths. I think I could just dive right into these life paths, because the generic life paths, I think it'd be funny just to see, how from any life path, either from the smallest, and growing up on the streets, or to being a high-end executive, how you get to being, telling stories like this, or either trying to take down corrupt politicians or corporations, or maybe even boosting them up and lying for them. But
Oh, I like Jay Gray says Elfline's online streamer. That's a great example. But yeah, let's start, like you said, let's go into the specific life path for media. Anybody following along in the rule book, you have that Cyberpunk Red rule book. It's on page 63 of the PDF. What were you going to mention? Sorry.
Oh, I said 62. I was looking at page 62, but...
Oh, yeah.
63.
Yeah, I'm on the PDF there. I'm just on the beginning of it. But yeah, starting right there at the top of the individual media life path.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
So you get with like a blogger, starting that out. Maybe it'd be funny to see like just a free agent that's just typing out their mind and nobody's listening and posting it out on the data pools, and slowly you're getting traction, or maybe you're even contracted by some big corporation to like write blog posts for them, boosting them up, or that type of thing. Even being a vlog, I think that could go hand in hand with being a vlogger, like a Elfline streamer.
I was just Yeah, I was just gonna say it's funny. Jay Gray started with that before we dove in. It's like he knows the life path of media or something. But yeah, absolutely. That's a prime example. The online
Yeah.
version, you know.
Yeah, because I think that can go hand in hand. Blogger, vlogger, being that kind of online personality, kind of freelance for the most part, seems like. Uh, then you got, writer of, typically books, being a full-fledged author out there. That's, uh, you got your Hunter S. Thompson types out there, maybe, or even just full out expose on uh, a full paperback cover, going,
Oh yeah.
writing 200-300 pages and taking your time with that.
Oh, and
Uh,
especially like when I think of Cyberpunk Red, and you think of books, if you think about traditional versus like a digital scream sheet or some hologram future version of a book or pop up, or some evolved version of a book, or old school. Maybe someone's in some crazy high rise loft, like hired by some crazy exec or something to sit there with like ink and a feather and handwrite in like old school cursive font, like ink and like an old paper bound leather, like something from
all
the
right.
old worlds. Anyways, yeah.
Chiseling it onto stone, maybe.
Right, yeah, like when I think books in Cyberpunk Red, it could go in any direction.
Real, I mean, yeah. There's, um, especially with books being so at that point, feeling like, I mean, it's hard to get through on books even today in our world, and it's only 2022. I can only imagine the cyberpunk realm. It's hard to get people to sit down and just
Right.
crack open a book.
You're trying to you're trying to survive. You barely have time to read, unless maybe you're reading like survival manuals and I don't know.
or a gossip writer.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, then the videographer. Um, I mean, maybe you're kind of in the kind of photography journalism side, where you're just telling a picture with stories or video, and letting that footage kind of speak for itself. Or maybe you have a rocker boy as your main reporter that's on the camera, and you're just getting the footage. But
Exactly.
I
It's,
also thought like a
it's
video.
I was gonna
Oh,
say it's almost like a kind of a combination. When I think of Looper on Team Veritas, he's a bit of a videographer, but bit of book or blog in a way. Like you guys put out the scream sheet and have your official thing that you sell your stories, but it's very video based. Looper has that, mounted digital camera and
oh yeah, he has plenty of links in there for where you can access the direct footage, or what he's mentioning. Um, I did think it'd be cool to because I was, when I was going over these earlier, for like a videographer, um, all the different career paths that you could be going on. I mean, you're thinking about heading back to, say, like your rocker boy deep dive, all the different career paths that it could be. It doesn't have to be just a musician, and it doesn't have to be just a reporter type. And the videographer really spoke to me as like, what if I could only even imagine, because there's shows on, Net 54. Maybe your media is a cameraman, that
oh,
a videographer,
exactly.
one of those shows, and has a whole steady cam rig that pops out, pop out steady cam rig.
Oh yeah.
Which, you know, but then you have a documentarian. Maybe you're making some Ken Burns boring ass documentaries, or hell, maybe you're even some sort of, what's his name, Sacha Baron Cohen, doing some Borat or Ali G type of, using acting checks and making your documentaries that way. Um, but or an investigative reporter, kind of like Looper. Just digging in there. On the scene, hitting the beat, kind of more like the stereotype of what you'd kind of really imagine. Like I think the stereotype of a media kind of comes out of an investigative reporter a little bit. The Bess Isis, the Regina Jones from the 2077 video game type of deal.
Oh, and I missed that PWB saying like how about a gossip writer? I think he was putting that in on the blogger side possibly, but I like that, definitely a gossip writer. And in Cyberpunk Red, there's probably a lot of that too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and this last one, and keeping in mind anybody that's not familiar with the Cyberpunk Red, get the rule book. You know what we're talking about. But the whole life path is broken into sections. But that last one we kind of chatted about prior to this, which was Street Scribe. And what did that say to you, Will?
Street Scribe, like that was it was pretty ambiguous in my like. I was trying to do some digging online. I mean, maybe you're, handing out pamphlets on the street that you just type up and you have no distribution or, possibly, I know you touched on this with the rocker boy being a graffiti artist, but, you could possibly be some sort of graffiti artist that tells a story across like a large mural or, triptych or something like that, speaks with, artistry or sculpting or something like that. Maybe that's the way you do it. Or maybe you're just, a crazy guy on the streets shouting about, the end is nigh.
Exactly. No, but what's funny is all of those things you said are exactly what went through my head when we kind of had that little chat earlier prior to the stream. It absolutely kind of felt like that. Jay Gray says the original Cyberpunk media is Edison Carter from the old Max Headroom show. Oh, awesome. Yeah. No, that's perfect. But no, I absolutely think that a street scribe, though, when I think of that and I think street, I think, it could be as extreme as, like you said, the crazy person, quote unquote, on the corner that's just very opinionated about some stuff, just screaming. And like I picture it like that, or it's the guy kind of working around. And a lot of this does kind of play into what is awesome about Cyberpunk Red, multi-classing. Like you mentioned, the rocker boy position, but look at a fixer too. And I think Street Scribe, it's very tapped into networking. And Media Role kind of is that, media, rocker boy, fixer, they all can kind of weave a little bit into each other's realms, depending on where they place the power of their skills and stats and stuff, But yeah, that multi-classing really, to me, plays a lot into it. Look at PWB, conspiracy radio host. That's a great example. Yeah. An Outrunner, kind of like the tarot paintings in 2077. Yeah, exactly. Or you even make me think like a tarot card reader on like the corner. Like maybe a little leftover from Cyber Generation, knowing a little something like the character Vero from Team Veritas that you ran into, created that NPC. But yeah, that almost has like a Street Scribe vibe, right? Like they kind of have their ear to the ground. I picture that, like, knowing what's up in the underground a little bit, maybe.
Trying to send a message, maybe even through like in Cockney slang type of deal, where they had things that rhymed to like send the message so that the man didn't really know what they're talking about.
Exactly. And then once you get through kind of what kind of media are you, you get into the how does your work reach the public.
And that was a monthly they have monthly magazine on there, blog, Main Street, VidFid, news channel, book sales, screen sheets. And it's funny to me how like these could easily just jump in, like, oh, you're a writer, books, so your work only reaches through book sales. And I think it'd be clever to see how these really combine with each other, because you're maybe you're a writer of books, but your work comes out and say like on a mainstream VidFit that you have a contract with, where you write up their books and they'll promote you every time you release it, as long as you have that stamp on the cover or type of thing. So with a monthly magazine, you get your 1 month shot to do that. So I mean, hopefully that covers the rent.
It feels like that though, just as a GM, as look at a player point of view. Look how like, well, even with a monthly stream, or I have like my weekly stream with Sirenscape, right? And it's like that though. Like every campaign kind of feels like that. Like you're kind of running these main mission gigs to pay your monthly expenses and work through it. So it would make sense that kind of these are your how your work reaches the public. And it's awesome. It gives you these 6 options here. And I think most of us, well, especially the way you guys run, because you have a neocorp. Like I said, you kind of lean on a couple of these. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, with like the blog, which we already talked about, could fit as a vlog as well, where you're just streaming yourself or just writing huge blurbs that get out there. yeah, a lot of these could, you can feed into a lot of these, or just one of them if you'd like. I mean, your mainstream that's, you know, could be a streamer that you have a partnership with, or it could be one of the more popular like Cyberpunk TikTok type of deals, or
Yeah.
that's viral, or um, hell, maybe. I mean, you get put in stuff like that. Where this depends on how you want to run your media, and because you can roll these things and say, like, say you roll that you're an investigative reporter for a news channel with, and fair, honest reporting, and then with ecological impact stories, and does that mean you're reporting on a petrochem disaster that they polluted the ocean and swept it under the rug, or are you a weather person for Net 54? Like,
Right. No, I think that's the
um,
fun part too. Is that's where all this comes in. And that's what's awesome about a session zero. You roll this up and you give it that flavor, you give it that life as you create the character and work that out with the GM, and then it kind of gives it that flavor. But like you just tapped into the next step, once you kind of figure out how you're getting the story across to the public, it goes into this whole section of how ethical are you, and the first thing is rolling on ethics. Let's go over those.
yeah. So that, yeah, fair, honest reporting, strong ethical practices. You only report the veritable truth. I mean, you're not taking bribes. You're not, even if you might not have the greatest opinion of a corporation. You're not going to be sitting there making up lies for them. That might not, like stink bomb. That might not be the route for you if you're going to be a big gossip.
Exactly.
Uh,
No, and that's what's cool. To kind of, I don't know, streamline this chart because of the way it is. It's like, don't really need to dive into the different options. It's kind of laid out just so people know, where as you go from 1 through 6 or whatever, it's just, completely honest to totally corrupt, and just think of everything in between. It's like fair and honest, but willing to bend the truth a little bit. We'll occasionally do this. So it just kind of takes you through that sort of spectrum up to completely
lie,
corrupt. Yeah.
fabricating evidence, and and it would be really interesting to see what someone playing just an absolute evil media that works for the like a corrupt corporation that's trying to come up with evidence and lies to like take down a really good politician or a really good corporation and try to make them look bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the
But
stories you want to.
yeah, I was just gonna say, but yeah, once you do set up the ethics and you have that sort of, I don't know where you are, and that might be something. Maybe I think it's fun to roll all the other parts, and maybe if you're into diversifying your role play, you're cool with rolling your ethics and stuff. But sometimes I don't know, you want to choose your alignment, so to speak, or at least your ethics, because you know how you want to role play that character. But sometimes it's fun to roll it and just see kind of where the dice fall. But yeah, once you do figure out the ethics side of it, then it's like what types of stories do you want to tell, still falling within that sort of ethical era, I feel like. But yeah, what types of stories? Let's go over that section.
Yeah, there's political intrigue, taking down politicians, ecological impact, um, is reporting on like a not BP in this case, but yeah, like petrochem, or they're or biotechnica, like how they or with our celebrity news, all the celebrity gossip that you could really get into, and trying to be like a paparazzi type of media, or corporate takedowns, like how Team Veritas is doing, taking down Orlov Importify. Editorials just being just running your opinions, and takes on things, and propaganda. Maybe you're just feeding into the machine and trying to make that bigger. Like I said, maybe being corrupt and working for the bad guy.
Exactly, and that kind of I think since we're getting into that sort of talk of working for the bad guy, being the good guy, and that ethical kind of
Yeah.
pull of how you play a media, that to me brings me right into the next section of the deep dive, which is archetypes. I love getting into this because I feel like, in combination of speaking of ways that you can play a media, I love giving examples. Like you mentioned William S. Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson.
or Hunter S. Thompson, and you mentioned who did you mention? There was a couple that you mentioned, right? Hold on,
Sasha
sorry.
Baron Cohen.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. There's a few at the
and,
beginning, and I wanted to make note, and I completely didn't write them down. But I was like, that's perfect for the archetype section. But it leans into kind of the way that you might want to play a media. But yeah, let's dive into the archetypes.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, being that kind of like I mean, I had a couple down here of some real people that I mean, or
Well,
um,
yeah, look at the examples, kind of ones that you had there. And before you mention those, one thing I want to mention, because we did mention about multi classing, is the fact that I think it's interesting to play a media. Are you focused on the story and just breaking the story as just a straight media, or are you looking for that fame side of it, where you might be kind of like a rocker boy media? I think that was mentioned in chat as well. But it reminds me of like the Oprah Winfrey, Bill Nye the Science Guy style medias, you know what I mean? Like TV personalities that still kind of give some sort of media coverage, whether it's like, gossip
like
stuff or whatever. But I think like that rocker media, there's that sort of TV personality that's still media, but playing into the rocker boy and fame side of it, versus ones that maybe are focused more on the story that might multi-class into the fixer realm, if not just the straight media, you know?
oh, absolutely. I mean, whether it's someone that wants to be on camera as like that vlogger type of person, or reporter that's like you get someone like Geraldo Rivera, or
A great
someone like that.
example.
Yeah, they're just constantly in front of the camera, but they're also breaking the story. But it's they want you to know their face that they got it, and others it's it might just be, hey, they want the story to speak for themselves. It depends on if you want to fill in that type of and if you're just trying to get intel on the streets and spread that information. Yeah, I think you fall more into that kind of, if you're going that and that with that media that multi-classing mindset. Yeah, that'd be more like a fixer. But like, yeah, rocker boy or
Oh yeah.
um,
I like PWB mentioning. I have a media that reports on markets to help the little guy find goods, and that it reminds me too about the good versus evil side of it. Like if you're a media, are you sitting there just getting paid off to put out stories? Sean from Roll to Cast Baby Beard Media plays a media in my Team Ghost monthly game, and he plays an old guy that back in the 2020 days, he used to just put out any story he could be bought. Like corporations would pay him just to put out propaganda stories, media ad stuff, just to sell it. He didn't care. And now he's trying to make up for his old ways by breaking real stories and doing right, and make a better rep for himself in his older age. And I think that's something kind of cool with the media is like, and I don't want to get into the rollability breakdown. Like I said, I have a complete other video for that. But just the power behind a media being able to completely take down a corporation, change things. Like if the believability is there, you have enough evidence. But it's like good or bad. Like, is that evidence real? Is it stuff that you made up that is kind of corrupt to do something fucked up? Or is it like, are you trying to break a story to do good? Are you trying to break a story to help the little guys find source materials that they couldn't normally find during Red when it's hard to find? But I think a media being that not just powerful, but like, man, they could be really good or really bad, like evil or good.
I mean, and especially like, yeah, at that high, because at at a low level, I mean, being the evil type. I mean, is there really good and evil in this in this game?
Well, yeah, because like we talk about that in the gameplay, how sometimes you have to do some fucked up stuff and interrogate, or use your weapons, or twist the truth a little, lie to someone to get them to reveal something to do this. Like even when you're trying to do good, sometimes you have to do some crazy stuff because it is the time of Red. It is cyberpunk. It's the dark dystopian future.
But hey, maybe because I was thinking because when I hit with the videographer, maybe you work for a film crew, and how even just looking at the different roles, how all of them could it would be cool to see a campaign of like a film crew type of deal with your rocker boy as your actor and your but then because the videographer jumped out, I was like, easily could play as a director of photography, even the director himself, getting the shots, and you have the rest of you could easily tweak just the names to make them different roles in a film, and it'd be cool like that. So to just tell instead of telling it as a documentary or a straight report, it make it more of like a narrative style, and like you could tell the story of what was the guy movie Foxcatcher with I don't know why that popped into my head with Steve Carell. I don't know what, but just type of narrative stories that are based on a true story to get like awareness out about a certain thing, and you go and maybe shoot an entire film about it, to with your crew. But yeah, that we're let's see here what I had. Jotted some ideas down before this, and of course it's all just dancing around on the page on me now. Yeah, no, you have or like just a straight up tell it as it is, like news, anchor type, like Philip DeFranco or Anderson Cooper, just no nonsense, cut and dry.
See, that to me leans more towards like straight media, or even like that fixer media. Even though like it's out there, it's like less behind the scenes, more out there. Like when I think of media people that have that fame, but less rocker. I think when I think rocker, I think of the ones that like try to make like a brand out of their fame or whatever. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Like Michael Moore or something.
Right, exactly. But like I said earlier, like the Oprah Winfrey's out there, like that style, or
where it's because it's the person who's
Bill
saying
Nye.
It, to make it almost like the person saying it carries the story almost sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, those are. I mean, it's fun to just see like how you could just warp some of these life paths into just being completely different than they were meant to be. Just making it your own, because I feel like that they made that ARCHETYPES oriented this brilliantly, where some of these things are ambiguous yet they look like they could fit together perfectly with like like I said before, a writer with books, and of course oh, how does your work reach the public? Book sales. We'll maybe flip that or something, or that you're a videographer, and your stuff goes on at book sales because you've done some promotional work for somebody else who does write a book.
Right. No, I agree. I think that that's the beauty behind most role playing games, but ARCHETYPES and Cyberpunk in general. This has been since 2020 till now, but just the flexibility and how much that they encourage people, like, make it your own. You don't like a particular rule, something about it, like number one rule with all this stuff is have fun. So if you're not having fun, just change some things so you start having fun, because that's the whole point. It's a game. It should be like, for me it's fun, and it's a little bit of therapy too. Like, I love role playing. It just like gets you out of reality for a moment, lets you blow off some steam, get a little crazy, or whatever.
Like, yeah, no, because Looper is very much not always like me. He makes some very
I would hope not
foolish decisions that I would not make. Like, but I try to get into that that mindset, and then after the game, I'll be like, oof, I was really in it, because I was getting into his head, making these split-second decisions. And I one of the inspirations I do take from him is a little bit of Hunter S. Thompson, just that kind of gonzo-esque journalism, just running with the pack on the streets, trying to or even by yourself when you slip into some ruins with a bunch of vice. I think
I even joked with Looper talking about taking him through backcountry or something like at one point. Didn't I mention something? I can't remember, but that's awesome.
Parting with the locals to get the story, type of deal.
Oh yeah, no, media's and again, like I said, media, they're so powerful with that role ability, but it does kind of flex a little bit of like rocker boy meets fixer, but on this sort of like, I think it was James Hutt I had on the media role ability breakdown video, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it was him. If it wasn't on that, it was on a GM Roundtable episode. But James Hutt even said, like, man, the media role has potential to be game breaking. Like, it can almost be game breaking if, like, the GM can't handle things right. And, like, I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily just be like, "Oh, I'm going to take down Arasaka now, and I'm level 10, so the whole place is going to believe me, and everyone in the world now hates them." Be like, "Wow, you just kind of, all right."
Yeah, you gather up enough evidence, you put it out there, you know. But that's why I said, like, I think it's kind of fun when it's that powerful of a role, you know, to see how a player leans into the archetypes, you know, whether good or evil, that sort of multi-classing vibe. And I think the examples that we gave are great. Chat, anybody in chat, any more examples, feel free to drop it in. And on LifePath, you know, as we move on to different sections of this deep dive, you can always chat about something that we previously discussed, and we'll mention it. Stink Palm in there in chat says, our Talsorian even did a bunch of Twitter threads on reskinning every role. Oh, that's right, absolutely right. That was so cool. Jay Gray posted that not too long ago. They also did threads on multi-classing every role. I love the versatility. Exactly. Great example.
I saw that on the Cyberpunk Red subreddit, too, that they were making those individual posts.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Completely forgot about that. Great to bring that up. Stink Palm. Anybody watching, make sure you follow our Talsorian on Twitter and check out those previous tweets. But yeah, let's get into, obviously, you know, if any more examples pop up, drop them in. Anything more on archetypes, we can get into that. We can backtrack. But unless there's any, let's see, PWB says, what would be an anti-media, evil media, maybe propagandist? Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like a kind of, you know, a media using his power for evil. Like, you know, gathering evidence to build up the believability, which gives them that bonus on that roll for credibility. Again, I'm not going to get into the rollability breakdown. I know some of that might be French. If you're new to Cyberpunk Red, dive in. You'll get it with the rules. But yeah, like, what if some of that is made up? Like, you know, if you're gathering evidence, but it's stuff that you've done previous roles, like with persuasion, interrogation, and acting, and forgery, or whatever you've done to successfully create evidence that gives you that bonus on that rollability roll, but you're using it for evil. It's absolutely not real, but you've got the public believing it, and you've been able to manipulate whatever the story is. Sure.
Right. Imagine as you rise the ranks in, you know, that rollability, you know, you become more, you know, famous and whatnot, or your stories carry a lot more weight. I would imagine, you know, some of those more corrupt, you know, corporations reaching out to you and be like, hey, we'll offer you a lot of money if you write this type of story, and you might be able to, you know, prod your player who might have that, you know, oh, I only write truth and justice type stories, and like, really? How much money is it going to take for you to break that moral code of yours? You know, especially
exactly. That was like the character, like I mentioned, that Sean plays in my team Ghost. You know how he used to be back in the day. You know, yeah. And Stink Palm mentions in chat it could be a PR agent for an evil corp. You know, trying to convince the public that an evil corp is actually helping people. You know, like, oh, sure. I mean, that goes on these days. You know, like, so it's 100% happening in a dystopian dark future, you know.
The company over there that's doing it for nonprofit is actually,
right,
you know, screwing you over. And this company over here that, you know, you should be paying them that $20, you know, daily fee or whatever.
Oh, look how many charities get exposed for, you know, barely passing the donations on, and like they just find loopholes, and like there's so much corruption just in like I said, in reality these days, in our reality. So you can only imagine, like, if you can get creative in a dark dystopian future of cyberpunk in Night City, especially, be in the sort of international waters of the dystopian future of cities. You know what I mean? It's like this. Anyways, let's get back to media. Let's take it from archetypes and examples into recommended stats and skills. Oh, PWB, what about a good media that is stuck working for a state-controlled network? Oh, exactly. To me, that's like straight media. You know, like if you're just playing media somewhat straight, you know, you're gathering evidence, you're breaking stories, which is fun. Like that's, to me, traditional media. You're gonna get into a lot of sticky situations, but
you're telling you can't print that.
Right, right. Oh, and it allows for some good role play in situations where, like, you're working for a state controlled network, and maybe there's certain things you can't do, certain lines you can't cross. But I got to break this story, and my boss is really cracking down on me, so I'm gonna do this. Hopefully, nobody finds out. I can see some fun with that. Um,
Hmm.
but like I said, let's get into some recommended stats and skills. When you think of media, what do you think with stats and skills and ways to play it?
I mean, the top three that to me that come off of intelligence, cool, and empathy. Because I mean, intelligence, basically, you're first off, you're going to want to know how to read. So, but I mean, you want to know how to put, some abstract things together, sniff out leads where, others might not be able to. Remembering something you saw once that ties everything together, being aware of your surroundings in general, just coming up with clever ways to get in and out of situations based on, what you have at hand. And then that cool and empathy, going hand in hand. I mean, you're going to be needing to grease some wheels, at some point or another as media. So,
See,
that
no, I was gonna say
kind of
I was thinking the same thing too. That for me, that the top stats are like empathy, intelligence. Empathy or cool, kind of like on that same sort of teeter with intelligence. Like, but again, I think it plays into what kind of archetype, what kind of media are you playing? Because obviously, like, if you're the guy that's just trying to figure out the facts and break a good story, and you're a clean reporter, and like you're trying to do what's right, and like maybe you're focused more on intelligence and stuff like library search and local expert stuff, conversation, you know what I mean, stuff like that. Education, maybe a little bit into social skills, human perception. But to me, man, if you're gonna lean into the potential evil side that a media could be, or you're gonna, like you said, have to grease a few palms, or maybe even use a little bribery or persuasion. Maybe you've got a couple little combat skills so you can intimidate, and get what you need done when you're interrogating, through some persuasion. To me, like, then you're gonna lean more into that empathy and that cool stuff. So I don't know. It always depends on how you're going to play that media. To me,
it always. I mean, like, you could have it at so many. I mean, like, even with maybe you have, but you rely a lot on your video camera or photography or something like that. You're gonna want that skill with tech, or if you plan on maybe getting around security and whatnot, using pickpocketing and pick
oh yeah.
locks. Like, break in there. It depends on if you're the type of media that's going to be willing to do that, or
And that
you
also
know.
comes into team play too. Like if you're a team and you're like, oh well, I've got a fixer on the team, I've got a solo. Like maybe I'm not worried as much on picking the lock in this. I can focus more on this side. Like you can kind of work team dynamics to be the best team Veritas, for example. And Stink Palm, back on what we were saying and just a moment ago, he says in chat, human perception is important for getting facts straight. Absolutely, you gotta read those little facial expressions, those little twitches and inconsistency, the blinking, the sweating, the raised pulse that you see happening in the vein, all kinds of great human perception things that you can pick up on or role play into the game, but definitely good for a media.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, I feel like a media just has, you got to have like your Swiss Army knife of different tools and available. Because I mean, you might need to talk to someone here, but you might need to get a little creative in searching here. Might need to break into this office. Might need to, get some good footage. Might need to. So I mean, it's sometimes you need to be a little bit of a jack of all trades. So I mean,
It always,
that luck too. But I mean, treating
yeah,
it
oh,
just. I mean, it doesn't work for your roll ability. So I mean, you might need it for because trying to have a little skill in here and there might bring your overall like you might not have a 6 and everything. You might have 2s and 3s and stuff like that. And so that luck is really gonna come in handy.
oh yeah. No, and I think you just mentioned something that I always think is important with with Cyberpunk, with the way it is. It's almost like there's these certain sort of like, I don't know, staple skills or things that you focus on that every character could kind of do well with if you're on an edge runner team, which every team is kind of an edge runner team, whether you're running a Neocorp like Team Veritas, Team Ghost is kind of doing the medical Neocorp, but I have other edge runner teams that are just kind of independent doing gigs, like traditional style. I feel like with all those teams in Cyberpunk, there's always like persuasion, stealth, some type of combat, whether you're into melee, martial arts, or hand-to-hand brawling, or using a gun of some type. But I feel like whereas those are like the certain things, jack of all trades, the certain skills that fit in with every role should have, they're always role played a little different, right? So like whereas everyone should have their perception, because you're always trying to check out things when you enter a room, it's always used a little different, just like where like a solo might use it to find like the hidden cameras, or like leaning on human perception for like, does anybody in here look like they might be getting violent, or look like they're scoping us, looking us up and down for weapons and like that sort of thing. Whereas a media might do it to see who's lying or telling the truth, to break a story, or perception to kind of lay out who might be looking like they witnessed something earlier, who looks a little nervous out of this group. So you see how even though there might be these skills and stats that are blanketed, like my staple ones, I feel like every team kind of should have these few, they're always like dynamic even within how with how you use them in role playing.
No, yeah, absolutely, because like for conceal reveal check, like because I even was listening, like you might want to slip a video camera or a bug somewhere, to hide that, so you can slip out of the room. They don't, then your surveillance is going on without, whereas like a solo might use that to hide a gun instead. It's
I like that PWB in chat. Well, first, Stinkpalm says, jack of all trades, like a bard in D&D. They also tell stories, definitely. And PWB, as a DM, EMP would be a good check for how effective an article or report is at changing the audience's opinion. That's kind of within the role ability, though, when you do the whole, believability check or credibility, when you do that end result on breaking the story. But I like that, like maybe along the way, or like little stories or side arc story or something within a particular story. Like you break the story, you hit that believability, but then because of what the particular content of that story is, maybe it falls into something that leans into empathy, and then you can do a separate EMP check, a generic like 1d10, see if it falls under EMP or your EMP stat, or add it to a particular skill maybe, to see if it was believable, but did it also change the audience's opinion in a certain direction or in a certain way. I like that, to give it some detail like that. And Stinkpalm says, that is why I have a chapter on uses of skills in medicine in the time of Red. Oh yeah, and great time to mention Stinkpalm created Medicine in the Time of Red. It's on the Cybernation Uncensored website, cybernationuncensored.com. We have a bunch of free content and assets and cool stuff on that site. So if you're into Cyberpunk Red, Fallout, Dune, any of that stuff, even just general gameplay stuff, check out the site and get some free stuff. But yeah, anything else on stats, skills, ways to use them, recommended ones? Chat too. Any ideas on that too? Feel free to contribute.
I mean, and those, the educate, because I mean, the social skills, I mean, obviously are going to help you, get in, like bribery, conversation, human perception, interrogation, persuasion. Those are going to definitely help you get, information out of people, or get into places maybe you're not supposed to, or or even just access to information, with your streetwise. I mean, maybe even, with trading, depends on, how you could use that. But then
trading information or something, haggling a little bit. Like I said, it leans a little bit on the fixer role, a little bit on the rocker boy, whether you're going for the fame. And some of the stuff you mentioned, like I almost feel like that lawman side, when you're thinking about interrogation, trying to get some information, that sort of stuff.
Just how well they can, the synergy. But like those education skills can really come in handy too in a gym. I mean, with something like you're going over, business or accounting, are you going to look in there and find out, this company is obviously money laundering this way, or like, is it going to pull it up and just be like, it's a bunch of numbers, it's, and how well you're able to review that. I mean, hell, you can even, if you're going the bad route of trying to, make some good corporation look bad, maybe you could get in there and use your accounting to make it look like they've been money laundering. forging their
You're
numbers.
one of those evil medias like we were talking about earlier, and you're creating your own evidence, so to speak, to break your own twisted story for your own motives, and part of it is using your accounting skill, like you said, to go in and botch some numbers, so then you can act like, see, this is the evidence I found. Look, they're botching numbers, and
Just and like these little. I mean, hell, you could get really creative on some of the. I mean, it depends if you want to just have the skill, and maybe it comes into play. Like, hey, maybe you're going to be able to coerce somebody to give you their information if you beat them in a dance competition or gambling, or something like that. So I mean, it really just depends on how you play your media and how I think that morality compass is a good indicator of what you might be willing to do and how you might be willing to go about getting some of these things.
It's funny too that you mentioned the dance thing on my weekly Sirenscape Cyberpunk Red gameplay. I do every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard. People should tune into that on the Sirenscape Twitch channel. But they were out on a Driftination and they were meeting this guy Diego, who was running the Latin district, one of these side ships being pulled by this huge aircraft carrier, which is the district, the Citadel. And before, he was a bit of a playboy, and before he would sit and talk with them, they were all partying. There was performers, people were dancing, and he's like, before we talk, everyone have a drink. We did a little resist torture and drugs, and then let's dance. And whoever had dance skills or didn't, they had to kind of do the role. Some weren't doing good. The rocker did very well. She was able to kind of impress Diego, who then would talk to her, and then they could engage in some back and forth information exchange and stuff. But I totally used dance to kind of be the door opener or whatever.
I'm gonna have to go back and check that one out.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I always, I mean, even for a media, I mean, even if you're just gonna be, trying to talk your way into situations or picklock your way into situations, using those education skills. I still, recommend no matter who you are in this game, I'd always have a fighting skill, man. At least like Looper, he can't brawl for shit. He's, but I mean, he can fire a gun, because he was a big tattletale when he was younger, and him and his brother and his brother's friends used to beat him up. So his mentor taught him to shoot a gun instead of using his fist, because obviously he can't have that footage with him in the robot. But yeah, I'd say always pick a fighting skill, and even every single one of the from awareness skills all the way through technique skills, you're going to be able to find something that's going to be able to give you an edge as a media.
Like you said, even tech skills that can come into play with creative role playing. I feel like if you're a good player, you can find creative ways to kind of throw a skill use at any level of GM. Be like, hey, I want to kind of do this. Hey, can I use my skill to do like this? And if you're creative, absolutely, you can leverage those things to your benefit in any role. But as a media, sure, I think it definitely plays into Cyberpunk that you said, having some type of combat skill. I think it'd be rare to not, but I think kind of fun too. And like I said before, I think that matters on the team. If you're on a team of edge runners and other people are more combat ready, maybe you're focused more on intelligence, gift of gab, and you're gonna hope, or even if you're playing by yourself, it might be fun to kind of make your weapon persuasion and gift of gab. And hold on, guys, and you're always trying to talk your way out of every situation, pinning other people on each other, and just always never touching a weapon,
Team Veritas' own Phoenix. I don't think I've ever seen Belle's character for that, but I don't know if she even has any fighting, because she doesn't fighting at all.
Exactly. Yeah. Shout out to my beautiful wife Val. She was in chat. I think she still is. She said she was tuning in while she's working on stuff. But yeah, her fixer character, she doesn't use a gun. She only uses her blade. She has the pop-up blade. I think she used it once, if that. But I think, the more combat people in the team have kind of handled that sort of stuff or come in those situations. But yeah, I think I personally am a fan. I think, as a media, especially when you're going to be breaking big stories, just I feel, in any edge runner team, but I feel net runners, because you're in systems constantly having to cloak and hide yourself. I feel a media is constantly breaking stories and, throwing people under the bus, where they're getting their evidence and things from. They have to name drop. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's a bit of a situation where, like, media, just like a netrunner with the cloak situation, like, it puts you out on the chopping block a bit. So it's kind of good as a media, like you said, to be able to handle a gun or a blade or something. Oh, look, and my beautiful wife Val's there in chat. She's still with us. She put a little emoji there so we know.
I mean, maybe even brush up on that acting skill so that maybe you go into disguise to get your information so that they don't remember you.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
I was with a friend who said, and I was telling him that I was like, hey, maybe you'd have to do that. And he says, well, don't you get more famous as you up your rank and release more stories, and it's going to be hard to But I was like, well, acting still like goes for disguising your emotions, and you might be able to seem like. Use acting to say like you're on somebody's side, even though they know who you are and the type of stories you release. You can disguise your emotions and be like, oh, I don't care about that. I care about you when you're lying.
No, and I put out I think it's on my Game Master Tips series where I talk about the dynamic ways that I use reputation in gameplay. Like in Cyberpunk, all my teams have kind of a team rep. They kind of have individual player reps, and sometimes I'll have dual reps, like, the rep that's public and the one that's kind of known. Like a fixer that constantly haggles and gets a good deal, they might have a different rep when they're going in to haggle. Like, I know you're always trying to get a good deal, and now their haggle with that guy is at a -2 or something, because their rep has now affected that because they're constantly beating the deal out of people, so to speak, with their awesome haggling, So, like, yeah, depending on how you do it, like, reputation can come into play. So, as a media, great point to make. You might want to invest in some acting skills or, disguise or, wardrobe and style, or some way to kind of change yourself up and, do your version of cloak, your meat space version of a netrunner's cloak in a system,
Deep throat.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to Val in chat. She says, I have a pop-up weapon. So, yeah, her character, Phoenix, like I said, has that pop-up blade that she uses. Yeah.
She avoids combat. She doesn't cheat at all costs.
Yeah, it's not her thing. She'd rather talk her way and persuade people and then get the hell out of Dodge if things get crazy, unless she has to,
Same with Looper, but he'll pull out the pistol for intimidation purposes more than fire.
But
I think the campaign I fired like 3 shots.
Exactly, but that's why you have your solo, and apparently that's why you guys have your exec, your crazy wife who accidentally popped the cop that was pretending to be the booster gang and killed off her. She was a crazy cop, though, a bad person in Vice, so she deserved to die. But
yeah, like 3 shots taken by me, and I think she has 3 bodies dropped by her.
Yeah, hey, Jan6 in chat, who I was just mentioning, plays the solo Wolf on Team Veritas. Jansik right there said Phoenix can talk her way out of anything. Exactly. PWB says medias with high levels are more likely to be threatened or otherwise targeted and in need of protecting themselves. Absolutely. Exactly. That's what I was saying. Like, media's just like a netrunner. I feel like netrunners constantly fucking around in different systems. If they're not remembering to drop a cloak every single time and getting good rolls on it, like, eventually that's going to come back to bite them in the ass. I feel media just like that, they're, especially with high levels, the more they're threatened, and as they put out stories, like I said, think about, as you're revealing evidence, like eventually it's going to trail back. Someone's gonna talk and be like, oh no, it's because of this or that, and like, I don't know, I just think media, they put themselves out there a lot.
I mean, and and I was thinking of ways that if you had a media as one of your players, and they reveal something that hurts a corporation or a politician, maybe they don't come directly after you. Maybe they do, as a lot of corporations do. We did some internal structurization, we launched an internal investigation, and they probably throw some mid-level exec under the bus who loses their job, and maybe instead of the entire corporation coming after you, that mid-level exec is trying to just come after you, and then
exactly.
you then come part out of it. And where the stories still have consequences, but you don't have to worry about, as a GM,
I love that.
Bring Arasaka down on this one guy.
Exactly. No, but I love, like, on my gameplay, anybody that's watched any of my streams, like, I have multiple things going on, and, like, there's going to be repercussions from, 3 campaigns ago, things, like, coming up. Like, I love being deep like that and remember, just being as widespread as I can with that. But I did want to address Oof McGavin says I play a fixer and didn't think about getting a rep for trying to haggle all the time. Well, it's not a normal thing. Like I said, not every GM does that. I kind of started the multiple rep situation. If you check out my Game Master Tips series, I think it's somewhere in there that I mentioned how I do it. I've been doing it a while because it's something that I did in my gameplay as a GM to kind of, I don't know, be more realistic with my players and teams with how life would be with it. Your rep isn't just the same everywhere you go. It's going to mean, just like the book says, it means something different in different places. So to me, it can't always be that same number. You're gonna have to rock a couple different reps for different reasons in my gameplay. And I think other GMs, if you've seen that series or you've seen me do it or caught wind of it, maybe others are starting to do it. I'm sure if I thought of it, I didn't create it. Like, this world is so populated, somewhere out there probably thought of the same thing and has been doing it too. But it's a lot of fun. I think it just adds just a bit more depth to the gameplay, and it keeps the players on their toes.
I think Oof McGavin is getting the right kind of fear. That is, I believe that is one of my players in the campaign
McGavin, Oof McGavin.
Yeah, I believe
Nice.
that is their. As well as Jancic also plays a solo in that campaign that I.
Yeah, that's how we got Jancic into Team Veritas, as he was playing with one of your teams. And PWB says, think I've mentioned before, but I've even assigned a rep to a 2020 player's gun that took out a cyborg with one shot. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, like, that's really cool. Like, there's some lore based on that extreme event. So out there, like, NPCs, people, like, when that player pulls out that gun, you do a separate 1d10 rep roll. Like, people see that gun, they're like, oh, shit, I think that's that gun that I heard of that took out that cyborg. Like, yeah, that's really cool. I like that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I like that.
So, yeah, just building that rep. And, like, how it could you go from having a good reputation to becoming infamous, just with you could easily make that jump where a good reputation is you're more suddenly more famous for doing bad than good. It's not all just about that number, as you said, because a lot of that reputation could have been built on you being a truth and justice type of good guy media, and you get all the way up there to 7 or 8 reputation, then suddenly you're taking down charities and little old ladies stories, and now you're gaining more reputation, but it's it's not all built on the bad stuff or good stuff, so it's not all about that number.
Yeah, no, I think it's a totally different type of evil. Like, when you think of the rare occasion, like in fantasy, like D&D realm style stuff, right? Like, you think of like when people want to do like a chaotic evil team or some type of evil team, and it's usually based around like who and what you're killing, right? And like your moral acceptance with certain aspects of that, right? But with Cyberpunk, I feel because of the role diversity, like you said, there's just so much evil that can be done without even pulling a trigger, and in taking out a charity. Great example. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, and again, it shows the power behind being a media, with what you can do. You can absolutely use it for evil or good on a big level. But it'd be crazy to see a Cyberpunk team that is just focused on being evil, and not just going around killing and stuff, but like I said, like trying to create some type of corporation that's all about being a fake charity to do this, but really is doing this evil shit. Like, they're building themselves these McMansions over here and like, or whatever. I don't know. But it'd be crazy.
I think that'd be really cool to see, an edgerunner crew that's on the side of, on the side of the big bad corporation. Yeah, with I'm
gonna make my next stream team do that, because like I love doing that. That's why I suggested on Team Veritas, let's put together a media corp, like that's some type of corp, neocorp. I did that with Team Ghost, doing the sort of medic sort of team. I think my next stream team that I put together. I'm gonna make the team be some type of evil neocorp, like a fake fronted charity, and then they've got to think of whatever they're really doing with that, and then they've got to play into that. Like, maybe I'll do something like that. That sounds pretty crazy. Maybe it won't be forever ongoing, because that would suck to always be negative and evil and stuff. But maybe that would be a fun little
a redemption arc.
Yeah, or a little 5-6 session like thing. Do that and then forget about those evil characters. Throw them out. It was just a momentary thing, but we don't need that bad karma.
Oh yeah.
in role playing that all the time. But it might be fun to do momentarily. I think
Um, yeah. No, I've been trying to put together that same one. Like I put together the how that would work with like a film crew and you being a media that way. Telling it through like a narrative type of story instead, or making brain dances and type of deal.
Oh yeah, and PW says, do you play up on the repercussions of a media's reporting? Absolutely. If you've seen any of my teams and streams, like I play into repercussions and reward systems, both, negative and positive, on every stream, every team. I try to keep it as real as possible. I think it was awesome when you guys got Jancic in there as Wolf, the solo, when he remembered, he's like, hey, why don't we have our netrunner check the street cam and cover that up, and like little things like that like my other teams don't do. And it comes back. Like I absolutely have things like that. And Jancic, who watches my other streams, he's aware of stuff, so he's very like cautious with stuff. And I remember when he did that, and the rest of you were like, "Oh, whoa, we almost forgot about that." Like great thinking. And but absolutely. And I think when it comes to media and doing reporting, like you're creating enemies just as much as you might be breaking a great story and making good happen. And obviously, someone had to take a hit for the exposure for that to happen, And like I said, along the way, you're digging around and doing things where someone might be upset. You never know. But with me, I think absolutely there needs to be a reward and repercussion system built in it, and it needs to be dynamic, like I said before, so it feels real. It needs to
tease that those repercussions are coming, like with that diner scene that we had with Team Veritas, like who was in the black van across the street, like now I'm biting my nails, like crap, who's coming for us, like who didn't the story get that still.
Yeah, and my team over on the Sirenscape every Thursday, their netrunner, her apartment just blew up. They were at the same 24-hour diner where black Humvee or whatever came by and took a shot at them. They're not sure who it was shooting at, but then later on, the AI told the netrunner, "Don't go home tonight," while they're in the middle of this AI driven campaign. At one of the nights, the AI said, "Don't go home tonight. Don't sleep at home." And the next day, she found out, there was a firebomb hit kind of put off in her apartment. But I'm all about repercussions, things coming back. You can trail it off into side arcs if the players want to pursue it. It can totally turn into a cool side arc and things. But I think it's important as a GM to kind of constantly have all these multiple layers and things going on so the players can have full agency. Like there might be this main campaign and plot that you're driving at times, but there should always be these sort of things that come back and allow the players to, let me pursue that a bit, or let me react to this a bit, and then you can kind of see where things can go for a moment before you move on to the next focused campaign and plot and things that you're trying to do. But I think that's important in roleplay. It makes the game way more fun, feel way more real and like an open world.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just allowing those consequences to become organic, especially if they, just minor little things that, I've taken note on with Team Veritas. I'm sorry, my thought just kind of went away from me. With Team Veritas, it was a consequence, but that makes it feel all the more real, and especially with something as largely effective as a media, whereas a lot of, most of the other roles are, in the here and now, whereas a media, it has rippling effects across the, community or city or even the world. And, those repercussions could just be catastrophic, at a certain point that, they really can become one of the most powerful characters in the game, I think.
Oh, I totally agree. PWB says, make one or more of your media players in your game an undercover reporter. Make them from from separate networks. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's pretty funny. No, I think that's good. We dove into the life path. I think we covered, our ideas within the different options of life path and kind of got the idea across there. I think it's very open to interpretation and people can have fun with that, mixing and matching. And you don't have to just stick with what you roll. You can pick and choose, or you can roll. One thing sometimes I do with players is roll twice. If you like the random, fun of, oh, what am I going to get when I roll the dice? But you also might not want to get stuck with just that one. Sometimes I'll be like, hey, roll twice and pick which one speaks to you the most out of each life path section. But however you want to do it, I feel like do it. And then I feel like we dove in and expressed some really good ideas with archetypes, including some good examples. And then getting into recommended stats and skills and the way that you can play it and how that kind of plays into the different archetypes of a media and, the different ways that you might multi-class that media, and how the recommended stats and skills are affected by those choices. I think that was good too. And then obviously getting into all the cool talk that we did about like reputation, the being an evil media, all the things that chat contributed with all these ideas. I think we covered anything. Is there anything else that we want to mention about media? Last call, chat. If you wanted to contribute any more ideas about the media role for Cyberpunk Red, now is the time to speak or forever hold your peace. What do you think, Will? Did we do a good job, or was there anything else that we should mention or go over?
I think so. I just left myself some notes here, and it's like I touched on everything that I had been coming up with, and I think came up with some really cool stuff down here. And I'm sure gonna take away some stuff out of this for sure. I definitely thanks to chat for definitely good ideas in there. That's fantastic stuff.
And don't forget with media, sometimes you can do a little evil to do good, maybe creating some evidence using those random forgery acting and other skills to kind of get what you need to happen to get certain stories across. Like, I think that's a good point to make too, because that's a lot of fun.
The right evidence from the evil corporation, they're evil. Fucking maybe you make something up about them and people believe you.
Exactly.
Way.
No, but I think we did a great job. Stink Palm says great material. I feel good about that. My beautiful wife says so good. Jansik says great job, guys. Really informative. I got some more hearts from Val. Outrunner gives us the thumbs up. PWB says great stream, guys. I think we got chat's approval. I'm pretty happy with it. Will, thank you so much for joining me and contributing ideas. Like I said, you've been part of the community and tuning in. You've been very supportive on Patreon and been kind of like the fuel on my fire on the gameplay side. Then you joined in with the gameplay and been awesome, like with role playing, and your wife as well. And now here you are, like contributing actual content and good information as part of the brand and everything. Like, I just can't thank you enough, man. Like, you're awesome.
I'm happy to be a part of it, man. Thank you for everything you do. And this, you're the one that started Cybernation Uncensored. So, yeah, without you, we wouldn't have anything to contribute to, would we?
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, and everybody out there, like Will said, we're here for Cybernation Uncensored. That's our brand. It's not just me, but a lot of other GMs and content that we put out. Like tomorrow, we have Crosswire doing live Cyberpunk art. Tune into that. Thursday, I'm over on Sirenscape's channel doing that. Cyberpunk Red Friday is our Fallout Fridays, where me and GM Capricious Nature do a whole day of streaming Fallout, the tabletop role-playing game that's starting at noon. And then Saturdays, his Cyberpunk Nomad campaign. The first and third Wednesdays, Forlorn Dopes. I have my end of the month Team Veritas, Team Ghost. I'm starting up with my Dune Team Witch. It's a whole femme team of Bene Gesserits. I think our session 0 is this coming Sunday on the 13th. So as you see, Cybernation Uncensored does all kinds of content. So everybody, seriously, please subscribe, follow on both Twitch, on YouTube, join us on Discord, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere you see Cybernation Uncensored. We would really appreciate that. And we'll see everybody next time. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Cybernation Uncensored.